Cordier. Welcome to Montgomery Week in Review. The Rural Maryland Council represents our farmers in the state. Charlotte Davis, the Executive Director, will tell us about what's happening in Annapolis as well as the trip to India to reach out to the farming community there. Since 2001, the Montgomery Countryside Alliance is a nonprofit organization working to promote and protect Montgomery County Agricultural Reserve. Caroline Taylor, the Executive Director, is here to explain. This month, the Beacon has stories about technology. Stuart Rosenthal, the editor and publisher, will give us details about Alexa, a look into the future. STEM studies may be a way for students to succeed in the future, but perhaps they may need to understand the basics of math before they can master the field. Jane Winter, who comments for this program, has some thoughts on the subject. Well, so tell us about Annapolis. What is going on there?
Well, right now we're in the middle of the legislative session. So we are an independent state agency under the Maryland Department of Agriculture. So we receive the bulk of our funding through the state's operating budget. So I have a line item that I have to go and defend and testify before the committees, as well as a grant program. That's a separate line item, so I've got to go in and defend those. And
what do those programs are? What are your programs really, their purpose, their goal?
Well, the first one is to increase capacity in rural communities, so looking at nonprofit service providers. Overwhelmingly, we see a lack of resources there, and a lot of governments don't, in the rural areas, don't have those resources or the tax base to support some of those service providers. So we give out small grants, about $25,000 a piece, to anywhere from economic development, community development, and health care to help those organizations better take care of the needs of the local community.
And what are the needs of the local community in general?
Mainly we see we have the lowest unemployment rates, so jobs in rural areas. You know, that's why we see a lot of traffic on the roads, because residents are coming down to 70 to jobs. Community development, so things like wastewater, water and sewer. There's been a move, we've banned septics in minor subdivisions in the state, so that means that any new infill development needs to be connected to public water resources. And then we have a lack of transportation. We have some transit, but we had much better transit system before the Second World War in rural areas. We had trolleys all up and down. In my little community in Middletown, I had a trolley that could have gotten me to Baltimore or Washington, D.C., and today I've got nothing.
Gotcha.
So those are our main issues, but there's other things.
And is there anything in Annapolis, aside from the budget, any bills that you guys
sure,
are
the
tracking?
paid sick leave bill. This was just reported out, passed in the House of Delegates yesterday. We expect that to probably pass this year in both the Senate and the House delegates. Mm-hmm. I'm sure the governor, will probably veto, and then we'll come back next year and have a discussion probably on a veto override just in time for the election year.
Why so ag isn't exempt from the paid sick leave?
I believe there are some components. It remains to be seen since it's still kind of a work in progress, but like for the farming community and for the tourist economy, particularly in Ocean City and Deep Creek Lake, where we're bringing in a lot of foreign workers already. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean? There are some exemptions for that, particularly for those foreign workers, but it's still a work in progress. So we don't really quite know what we're dealing with. The last week was the expansion of the powers for the Attorney General. So that the Attorney General can sign on to certain lawsuits without the approval of the governor. So they passed a joint resolution to expand those powers, so it would be interesting to see where
What was the impetus for that? I mean, was it because of the fact that there's a Republican and there's a Democratic Attorney General, or is it?
That was announced. Several states wanted to sue and did.
The
majority of the states currently, their Attorney General already has this authority.
Yeah, okay.
And so several of the states did sue, and that's why there was the injunction to stop it. Maryland was not one of those states that was able to do that. Yeah. So I believe the Attorney General had wanted to.
Yeah, he was hamstrung.
Right, but he didn't have that authority to do so. So this expands that so that he may go out.
Are you plugged into Delegate Fraser Hidalgo's hemp legislation 902? Where are you on that?
We have to sit back with the Department of Agriculture. So they take the lead on those types of commodity products.
Really quick, before you, some of us may not know, what is the hemp?
Right. So currently there's legislation that allows hemp to be grown only on university grounds, which is very limiting. This bill seeks to open it up to any producer on any acreage within the state, bringing us in line with other states in the country who've tapped into this great crop, which has no THC component, and it is a great boon to the economy, and Virginia's doing it now.
So Charlotte, we have just a couple of minutes left. What are the highlights of the India trip that you had?
Probably just seeing some of the scale of the farming that's over there. It's small scale. I mean, their average size of the farm is 1 acre. So consider over here in Maryland, our average size is about 100 acres, which is small compared to the rest of the country. Usually we're talking thousands of acres. So they were looking at 1 acre plots and we're doing a lot of hand cultivation still. There are some tractors and large equipment, but it is still, the milking's still done by hand, and a lot of the just weeding and fertilizing and harvesting is all done by hand.
Is Maryland looking to sell equipment to them, or somehow?
We were looking mainly to explore the poultry markets there because they closed it off to American imports. That's a huge commodity for the state of Maryland, and our farmers would very much like to gain access to their market. I mean, there are, over 1 billion people over there.
And are they not open?
No, they've closed this because of
avian flu.
Okay, so you've got 15 seconds. What's the last word on?
Last word, well, we're hopeful for rural communities and looking forward to the conclusion of the session and going forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Caroline Davis, thank you. This is your first time for coming on our show, correct?
Glad to be here.
Awesome.
Yep.
So tell me first a little bit about your organization.
So we're a nonprofit, and we're located within the Ag Reserve. We came into being to fight off the outer beltway and bridge that was proposed and is a perennial irritant for many in the county that would come through, bisect the reserve. But through time, we became aware that we had to really promote strong local farms, economically viable local farms.
And how good is Montgomery County's agricultural reserve? I mean, are we top in the country, bottom?
Depends on what criteria you use, but it's still a national model in terms of land mass protected, in terms of a preservation program, not just for farming, but for open space as well. But the other barometer is how well we're doing economically, which is growing each year. And it's, in my estimation, it's a boon to see the number of new farmers, women, immigrants, and others that have found their way into agriculture in Montgomery County. And as a result, consumers have access to food crops that they never would have seen before. Kiwana, for example, from our farmer from Zimbabwe, Tanya Spandla, now at Dawson's Market. I mean, these types of additions to our food stream, these types of job opportunities are just invaluable, and the reserve is giving that opportunity.
Do you see the local movement, the demand for locally produced products? Do you see that having an impact on the farming community?
Most definitely. Most definitely. Consumers are very keen on sourcing locally now, and that has really brought great additional promise to the reserve. And so that's part of what we do, is connection of the consumer base with what we have growing in the reserve, but importantly, connection of the farmers themselves with distribution and marketing to get to the consumer base. And one of the most important things is connection to land through our Land Link program. So the exciting news I bring today is that we've hooked up 400 acres in the reserve that otherwise was not in production with producers. But really neat is that we now have urban parcels in Silver Spring, in Gaithersburg, that have come to us to hook them up with farmers as a sort of proof of concept. We have a retirement village on 130 acres that wants a resident farmer. We have a new apartment complex in Silver Spring that wants a farmer as an amenity. And so we're busy hooking them up with these
So this is for
farmers.
community gardens, or is it really supposed to be taken care of just by the
It'd be a
professional farmer?
professional farmer, and that would be part of the community.
How does that help the community?
Well, the community gets to have locally grown
Fresh-
food right
fresh.
there, but they also get to learn about it. I mean, think of the children who are sort of hermetically sealed, who don't know about where food. They don't have to be hustled off to go look at a farm. They have a farm right there in the center of their community. And for a senior citizen community, this is a way for them to be active and for many of them to harken back to things that they had when they were younger.
How accessible is food grown in the agricultural reserve, like the locally grown crops, to people who, low-income residents in the county? And I'm bringing that up because I just read something this week about how workers in California, which is considered, this huge agricultural thing, are really on the very low end of actually eating fruits and vegetables because they can't afford to buy what is grown there. So
Well, we're very lucky to have several nonprofits that work hard. One of our partners, Manna Food, for example, that works very hard to source from farmers here locally. There's a new program, or new-ish program, Community Food Rescue, that has worked to sort of close the food system. So farmers with extra produce, we have people who are runners who take it from the farm to Manna, and then it's distributed. We have a closed system where food is composted, and that's a growing program. So it's still, there is a need that hasn't been fully met, but it's being worked on now, and certainly our markets are getting up to speed to accept WIC and SNAP, so that folks in need can get access to the food that they should be eating.
Is there any way for people to get in contact with you who want to maybe participate or get more involved?
Sure, we have our website, mocoalliance.org, that has a way to get in touch with us, and you'll find our contact information there. We are always looking for volunteers. We're looking for people who want to learn about farmers so we can hook them up with our partners at Future Harvest Casa, for example, which is a great organization to help get new farmers trained. So yeah, get in touch with us if you have questions, and we'd be
And out of
happy.
curiosity, how much of Montgomery County, I'm a city girl, so
Sure.
what I know Montgomery County is not the agricultural part.
Right.
How much
Well,
of Montgomery is agricultural?
Yeah, and this is why we sometimes call it Montgomery County's best kept secret,
Yeah.
because looking at a map, you will see about a third of the land mass is actually set aside for the reserve.
Wow.
And that's a considerable portion, and I think the more people know about it, the more connected they feel, the more likely they are to want to protect it and want it to consume locally.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
Thanks.
much, and I hope
Yeah.
you'll come back.
Oh
to-
no, this is great. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. So we have to take a break. Be right back. And we're back. Stuart, thank you for coming and bringing us your resource guide.
Sure. This
Tell
is
me about it.
The 2017 edition of the Montgomery County Seniors Resource Guide. It's an annual publication we do in partnership with Montgomery County government. It's an A to Z directory of all kinds of services for older adults and their families. And it's got a very extensive index and a nice table of contents, so you can pretty much find whatever you're looking for in this
It's a great
book.
resource to have by your phone, so if you
Right.
never know when you're going to need it.
Right, hold on to it for the
where
year,
can
yeah.
somebody get it?
Well, any public library or senior center or community center, but there are lots of other places where there are 50,000 copies being distributed, government offices as well. But you can call us at the Beacon if you need to know where to get one if you don't know
Awesome.
otherwise.
So, the Beacon's news stories. What
Yes.
are the top stories that you guys have?
Well, I want to talk about some interesting technology stories this month. You know, we have a technology section we've started about a couple of years ago.
Sure.
And what we try to do is explain to our readers what the latest things are on the horizon and how they can be helpful and useful to them. And at the same time, to also occasionally warn them about some of the concerns, ID theft or privacy issues that these things raise. So we have two stories along those very same lines in this issue, the March issue. One story is about smart speakers. That's the term used for things like the Amazon Echo or the Google Home device. Little small speakers, little cylinders.
That's where you say, Alexa, lights on.
Yes,
right?
Alexa is the humanoid voice of the Amazon Echo. And as soon as you say the word Alexa, it knows to listen to what you're saying, and then you tell it, turn the oven on, or open the garage door, or play me some music, whatever. There are all kinds of appliances and things that are being designed now to interact with these devices. So it could be very useful if you don't have to use your hands, you don't have to pull out a cell phone, you don't have to go to the apps and work on those, you just speak. So that's the good sign about it, and it can be very helpful and very useful in a lot of ways. The downside is that if you think about it, it's a microphone, basically. That's what it is. It's listening all the time to everything that is said in that room. And as soon as you say the word Alexa, it knows to capture whatever you're saying next and do something about it. So it sends the message to Amazon's computers or Google's computers and says, okay, this is what you have to do next, and then things happen. But in order for it to work that way, the microphone is always on. So the question arises, is it always listening to everything you say, and can things that you say privately in your home become either public knowledge or at least private knowledge somewhere else?
Or recorded and kept in a
Exactly.
place where anyone could.
Right, so it's not
Exactly.
a closed system within the household, it goes out.
It has to go out, it doesn't,
That
yes.
was what
right.
because I was thinking that you had to, you have some, server or some function in
Right.
your house, and your oven goes to that, and Alexa goes to that, but no.
it's these servers of Amazon and Google.
So
that
God
control
forbid
this
you
work.
say, Alexa, I want $1 million diamond ring.
Don't think it would help you with that one. But there is a concern that happened very recently. There was a house in which a person was murdered. And when the police discovered there was an echo in the house, they petitioned Amazon and the court to say, we want to hear what the conversations were leading up to that murder. And Amazon, of course, says, no, wait a minute, we don't want this coming out. But the truth is, they got that information. It's there in their systems.
Well, that's
So-
difficult. I mean, Apple had the same issue with unlocking the phone because then
The
the
terrorists,
consumers will believe, although that's a good reason to ask for it, we can understand, it doesn't
Yeah.
stop the government from
It's
continuing
viewed as a
on.
slippery slope, I
Right.
think.
It's
yeah.
a big brother concern.
Yeah.
So that is something to be aware of. So that's what we're trying to address, the pros and cons, so people can consider that.
Yeah.
Well, and there recently was something in the news about all these teddy bears that
Oh,
The kids'
the
interactive
dolls.
toys,
teddy bears,
right.
and
Yeah,
that.
and the girl's doll.
Yeah.
Whatever the
right.
kid says to this is
Yeah.
also recorded the same kind of way.
Right.
And they learn from you. They interact and they sort of learn artificial
Yeah.
intelligence how to anticipate your needs.
So, any other?
Yes, sure. Another, and the scary side one more time, but I hope not to overstress this. Defibrillators and
no.
in your heart, your pacemakers in your heart, right.
Yeah.
Many of them work wirelessly. They can be charged wirelessly. They communicate with doctors so that they can, and let them know what's going on with you. If you have some kind of a change, the doctor will be aware of it and that kind of thing. It's very important. That's how they work. But because, again, they work wirelessly, they can be hacked. So there was a security company was going around trying these things out to see how easy they were to hack, and they found a very major one that's a lot of people's bodies that can be easily hacked. So they alerted the manufacturer. They got out a special correction to it. They've taken care of the bug, before it became public. But now, just so you know, these things can happen. So
And it's unlikely that someone
Very
will
unlikely.
hack it just for the sake of it, but
Right.
if they're important people like politicians or others, public figures that do have those devices, then it becomes a little bit more
right.
particularly.
Well, and even, the Wi-Fi, you are on one part of the whole bandwidth spectrum. And so you're also, there's different parts of the spectrum devoted to different things.
Right.
But potentially somebody could not even want to have anything to do with your pacemaker, but
Just accidentally.
accidentally
Right.
I
do
wonder if that's
something.
the case.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
about that myself.
Well, you've got 30 seconds. What's the last
Okay.
word on technology?
Some good news a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, on dementia, the Framingham study, the longitudinal study since 1975 that's been following people, we're all concerned about dementia and Alzheimer's growing in the numbers and such. They've actually found it declining. In that group, in that population, the
Yeah,
rate of
that's
dementia
great.
has been going down over the past 30 years. And they think it's in part because people know more and they are more highly educated, because they say the more you know, the better you are prepared for this, and also because their cardiovascular systems are better. Their disease is going down. That has something to do also with developing of dementia. So try to do everything you can to be healthy in general. It'll help your mind too.
Thank you.
Right.
Tons of great information. If you want more, read the Beacon, right? Thank you, Stuart. So Jane, the winter, I can't add to save my life, and you're telling me that the STEM kids can't?
Need to.
Need to.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
Well, I actually, this sort of thoughts got spinning. My own real life job is involved in the field of STEM and educating youth in out of school time STEM programs.
Explain what STEM
Uh,
is.
Yeah, what
STEM
is that?
is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So it's really
Very important areas.
well, it's a very important area, but it's just really some acronym, for. And it's kind of like STEM as opposed to maybe humanities, that kind of thing. So, it's it's a field where, you know, a lot of jobs are in the STEM, you know, STEM area in the future. When we think about in Montgomery County, trying to, you know, make this a tech center of the country, those jobs and fields will all be considered STEM. We're talking about Alexa and saving Alexa or preserving, you know, whatever.
Cybersecurity.
Yes, at the Hans Riemer sponsored the first annual STEM Summit this weekend downtown Silver Spring, and talk was all that, you know, a huge field, a growing field is cybersecurity because of all of these these needs, these privacy issues,
and
protecting.
Kids who are going through the STEM programs and participating in that, are they learning the basics well enough to do?
Well, I mean, that probably not right now. I mean, just because it's very hard for somebody who, you know, okay, you're in third grade right now, and let's really focus on putting you on a career path for a job that you're going to be able to get in 15 years. I mean,
But more than
a
that,
lot changes, but
how do you get them to love it? That's
right.
what you
Well,
want.
and that's what a lot of programs are, like getting them interested in whatever. And I think one of the bigger hang-ups is math, because we can do a lot of engineering, design, build. It's really fun. Science can be really fun. Working with computers and robots, the tech piece, really fun. Most people don't really think of just, you know, being on the math team. I mean, there are some people, but
that's at the root of all of this.
right. Well, and I like to say it's not really so much math as arithmetic, because that is an impediment to do. Even at a, you know, at a level of a plumber, you need to know flow and diameter of pipes, and that's all
And
math.
I had heard that they're no longer even teaching you to memorize your multiplication tables. I mean, that sounds basic,
Right. But then that's really been at least for 20 years, and because the focus today with mathematics and early mathematics instruction is to get kids to understand the concepts. They want you to be able to explain how you got the answer and why you got the answer and what the theory is before. So they use a lot of manipulatives to show you, you know, like, you know, 7 rows of 8. But you're not required to memorize that 7 rows of 8 is 56.
But that's key. I mean, the process is key. And I mean, I remember back to geometry. Of all the math I took, geometry I liked the best because of the proof and the process. And the answer wasn't quite as important as the proof of it. So, you know, I think is that what you're finding? Do kids like the process then?
Well, I think what it is that they're being taught the process, and not that many people actually use geometry too much, but just even being able to, you know, comparison shop, you need to be able to do some simple division and multiplication. And if you, I mean, think about algebra or, you know, simplifying exponents or fractions or whatever. You can understand how to do that, which is what the focus is on now. But if every single time you come to simplify something that has some 2s and 3s and 4s, and you have to actually sit down and or count on your fingers or move some things to remember what they equal when you multiply them, it really slows you down. It bogs you down. And so, in my opinion, one of the ways to really, you know, get kids more advanced in STEM is to go back to basics.
Was there discussion at the summit about getting girls more interested in STEM? Because it's been a focus that there's a lack of women in those fields.
Exactly, yeah. Yes, there was that came up. I don't know that people had that many specific answers, but I do know that, like, we do STEM programs, and I've actually started talking with some organizations that work just with girls who are saying, you know, we'd like to bring a little STEM just to expose them to it so they know what's out there.
So you're about to have 30 seconds left. What do you want parents at home really to know about getting their kids involved in STEM, or if they are in STEM, what to look out for?
Well, I would say there's a lot of different STEM programs out there, and really, I mean, one of the things that we do is really just be asking kids, how do you think that works? You know, what do you think's going on inside that Alexa box or something like that? Just asking questions, getting the kids to think. But if parents could do one thing that the schools aren't doing, is it's making your kids write out their timetables, you know, 10 times every weekend.
Well, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jane. Thank you all of you for joining me this week, and thank you, the audience, for joining all of us for this week's edition of Montgomery Week in Review. I'm Mariana Cordier. Please join us next week at this same time.